Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome to today's show. Authorities say at least 132 deaths in 6 southeastern states have been attributed to Hurricane Helene, a number that climbed yesterday as a clearer picture emerged of the damage that it had inflicted on an area that stretches from Florida's Gulf Coast northward to the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. Also, President Joe Biden got defensive yesterday during a press conference when he was pressed by a reporter on who was in command over the weekend to direct hurricane response since he was at his beach home in Delaware. Also, President Joe Biden is expected to travel to North Carolina sometime later this week. He said possibly Wednesday or Thursday to observe the damage. The Reverend Franklin Graham, CEO of Samaritan's Purse, joined former President Donald Trump in Valdosta, Georgia yesterday to support those devastated by Hurricane Helene in Georgia. And tonight is the night Senator J.D. Vance faces off with Governor Tim Walz for the vice presidential debate. Are you planning to watch?
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
As the Carolinas continue to recover from the devastation of Hurricane Helene, utility companies are still at the center of the recovery. Here's some updates. Lawrence Electric says that power has been stored to just right at 30,000 members, representing about 46% of their member base. 17 of 32 substations are back online. As of today, Duke estimates transmission to some parts of Abbeville, Anderson, Lawrence, Newberry, Union, and southern Spartanburg, saying that some of those may not come back online until October the 7th, which is on Friday. Until then, power is not flowing to the distribution lines that brings power to those neighborhoods, homes, and businesses that are served by Lawrence Electric. The co-op is focused on rebuilding much of their infrastructure, saying that transmission will be reestablished as soon as that infrastructure can be rebuilt. Lawrence Electric is working in rotating shifts 24 hours a day in all parts of the service area, they say. The co-op has 150 crews representing more than 300 line technicians and right-of-way workers operating with a number of people coming from other parts of the state to jump in and help out. They're staging in large parking lots throughout the area to help relieve congestion at their operations center. Staging also allows the workers to be briefed with planning and safety information. They are asking people as you continue to get out and driving around to make way for the crews and to always be observant of the crews on the side of the road. Members who are dependent on medical equipment at home and are without power should call the South Carolina Department of Public Health, according to Lawrence Electric. That number is 855-472-3432, 855-472-3432 to find out if they're eligible for a medical needs shelter. Meanwhile, Duke Energy, Ryan Mosier gave an update yesterday afternoon saying that linemen from across the country were pouring into the upstate, helping to get the power back on. In a statement, he said, "We've got to get through that vegetation. We've got to remove trees. We've got to assess the damage. And that starts with our transmission system. The transmission system is what gets power from the power plants to your home. If it's down, it doesn't matter if we fix the pole that's down in front of your house. You're not going to have power," he said. While Duke Energy customers in the upstate will have their power back on by Friday night, they're saying, pretty optimistically, he said that western North Carolina is a whole nother story. And look, you see some of the images that continue to come out of western North Carolina, and boy, is it just tough. I just feel for those folks. A lot of relief efforts, a lot of organizations raising money to help support Western North Carolina and the Carolinas, South Carolina, but Western North Carolina, they were just devastated. Blue Ridge Electric Cooperative also released some updated numbers saying that power had been restored to almost 30,000 Blue Ridge Electric members since the storm last Friday. An estimated 51% of the members, approximately 37,000, remain without service, though. That's down from a peak of 90% on Friday immediately following the storm. They gave some outage numbers by county. Anderson County, just over 4,000. Greenville, just over 4,000. Oconee hit the hardest with just over 15,000. Pickens with just over 13. Spartanburg has just a few, less than 50. At least 132 deaths in 6 southeastern states have been attributed to Helene, a number that climbed yesterday as a clearer picture emerged of the actual damage that it has inflicted. Again, a lot of these areas, particularly in the mountain areas of western North Carolina, rescuers have just not been able to access the areas. Roads have been unpassable. So each day we're learning more and more and seeing more images. As helicopters are flying over from the National Guard, as they're using local law enforcement using drone footage to survey areas that have been devastated and they're still not accessible by automobile. Government officials said that aid groups were working to deliver basic supplies by air, truck, and even mule. That's a new one, or an old, dependable way of transporting things, particularly in the mountains, but evidently they have used mules to get some of the hard-hit areas in the mountains above Asheville. At least 40 people of the 132 deaths reported, 40 of those died in Buncombe County, which includes Asheville. President Joe Biden says he plans to travel to North Carolina on Wednesday. Now, I just have to ask a question. I understand he is the president. I understand that yesterday in his news conference he talked about this and the fact that there may have to be a special session of Congress to come back. They through actions of Congress yesterday, they avoided a government shutdown, but they may have to go back to consider additional funding for this emergency relief. The president saying he's coming to North Carolina, what can he do? Now, understand that he flies over in a helicopter and he looks down. But really, what can at this point in his career, at this point in his presidency, I guess I should say, what can Joe Biden do? What is the purpose of him coming down and distracting the relief effort? Because it's not an easy task for a president to visit an area. Things have to come to a screeching halt. You can't. What little traffic is available, and I would assume that some of the rescue groups, some of the utility groups, all of that will have to stop for Joe Biden to come. Is it worth it? Is he that tone deaf? I mean, to me, it's just kind of rude. It's kind of like the argument that was made in Clemson over the weekend with the Clemson Tigers playing their football game. A lot of the locals are still upset that Clemson invited 80,000 people into their hard-hit town and took away their fuel, took away their ice, took away their food. I mean, they named, and I get both sides of the story. But it's kind of the same argument, isn't it? That Joe Biden just doesn't seem to recognize the disruption and the delay that he will cause by coming to North Carolina. For what? It doesn't do him any good politically anymore. He's not running for re-election, so it's not that. Unless he hauls Kamala down here with him. You think she'll be with him? I just don't quite get it. With this many people hurting, with the devastation that we've seen, and now he says he's going to come down to pay us a visit. I think we could forego that. And as if the storm is not enough, we also may be facing a strike today of the dock workers. I've been talking with you about this. With just hours left on their labor contract, dock workers at the Port of Charleston and other eastern and Gulf ports were gearing up to strike starting today. So as if the disruption that the storm is causing on getting supplies, now this strike could prove to be a major disruption of the supply chain from the Northeast to South Carolina to the Gulf Coast. Charles Bray, president of the International Longshoremen Association, said that his organization was planning a labor rally late last night. Afterwards, he said picket lines would be set up at the 3 South Carolina State Ports Authority shipping terminals shortly after midnight. U.S. Senator Tim Scott issued the following statement ahead of a work stoppage, again expected to begin today. He said at least 100 Americans have died, millions have been without power, and flooding continues to devastate homes and communities in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. I urge the members of the International Longshoremen Association to temporarily continue working under their current contract until the suffering from the storm has eased.
PhD Weight Loss wants you to know, yes, you can. You can get back to your ideal healthy weight. Yes, you can get back into sizes you thought you'd never see again. And yes, you can get rid of that harmful belly fat, all without becoming dependent on medication loaded with side effects. Hi, it's Joey Hudson here. PhD Weight Loss encourages and equips you to lose weight the healthy, natural way and keep it all for the rest of your life. Dr. Ashley Lucas, a licensed registered nutritionist, developed a solid plan that works. Trust me, I lost 30 pounds. You see, PhD Weight Loss removes the guesswork. They literally tell you exactly what to eat each day while you watch the pounds melt away. But they also teach you to think about food differently and to learn to anticipate and navigate situations that make you want to indulge. PhD coaches will teach you to believe finally that yes, you can do it. With no gimmicks or lifelong medications, finally lose the weight and keep it off. Yes, you can. Call today. PhD Weight Loss, 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com.
One more quick note as we were talking about the devastation in western North Carolina. You know, one of the things that just really stands out, that's the historic mountain village known as Chimney Rock, North Carolina. It's a beloved filming location for some of the classics like The Last of the Mohicans, Dirty Dancing, and it has been virtually erased from the map. There's a number of photos that have been posted on social media and news organizations' websites, and it shows a photo of their main road there prior to the storm hitting, and then a photo comparing it today. And there's nothing there but mud and debris. It was a thriving community, and it's just at the base of Chimney Rock State Park and right beside Lake Lure. The town has just washed away as if it was never there. Ed Broyhill, a North Carolina GOP National Committee member and longtime resident of the area, said, quote, "The saddest thing in the world is that a lot of folks here have made a living from tourism. Everything from hotels, motels, restaurants to souvenir shops have been completely wiped out, washed into Lake Lure." Some drone footage that was released shows boats scattered everywhere, parts of businesses, even homes scattered in the waters of Lake Lure as the water just swept it down the road and into the lake. Mr. Broyhill said this is the worst weather event that has ever occurred in western North Carolina, and talked about how National Guard helicopters were used to evacuate some of the residents over the weekend to get them to safety. The area is known for its fall foliage. It's just I can remember as a kid and even into my adult life, when the leaves started turning and you started feeling that crispness, that fall time of the year, you'd ride through Chimney Rock. It was just a place to go. Well, authorities, of course, asking people, don't come. please do not come to North Carolina. The North Carolina Department of Transportation urging people to avoid travel to the region as their search and recovery operations continue. The destruction has left most of the roads actually unpassable. So just a sad thing to see those images of an area of a place that I have grown up going to. The Biden and Harris administration, their disaster relief agency, is facing some backlash after its unearthed emergency management blueprint went viral amid the recovery of this very destructive hurricane. The Federal Emergency Management Agency website lists a set of 3 goals as part of their strategic plan to address, quote, key challenges in emergency management. You guess what those challenges are? One would think that maybe it's equipment, or maybe it's being able to get to people quickly enough. But no, it's not any of those. The number one goal listed in the agency's priority is to, you ready for this? Instill equity as a foundation of emergency management. Instill equity. Now, what does equity have to do when you're trying to save people's lives, when you're trying to save their homes, when you're trying to rebuild an area? The second goal is to, quote, lead whole of community in climate resilience. And the third goal is promote and sustain a ready FEMA and prepared nation. According to FEMA's plan, diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot be optional in any of this. Wow. The FEMA plan says this requires that FEMA's leadership and workforce demonstrate an increased commitment to integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion in delivering the agency mission. FEMA must draw upon its staff's diversity and range of experiences to consistently inform programming, policy, and decision-making. Through investment in diversity and inclusion efforts, including employee resource groups and multicultural training, FEMA can increase its employee involvement and participating in cultivating a culture of inclusion. Again, what does that have to do with getting people to safety? To going into the hills of North Carolina and be able to get people out who can't get out themselves. Going into the mountains of North Carolina with water and with food. What does equity have to do with any of that? Wow. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck said in a post on X, I'm sure people who have lost loved ones, lost their homes, and now see their town underwater feel really great knowing that FEMA's number one goal is to be woke. Everything about their terrible response makes sense now. What an embarrassment. Another post, our government is broken. Scientist Robert Malone said of the agency's plan, I heartily disagree. The first priority of FEMA should be emergency response management. Gabriella Hoffman, an Independent Women's Forum's director, said on X, yikes, if FEMA response for the Hurricane Helene is slower, it could be attributed to the agency making equity a foundation of emergency management. And comments continue. Wow. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden got defensive yesterday during a press conference when he was pressed by a reporter on who was in command over the weekend to direct response to the hurricane, since he was at his beach home in Delaware.
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone. And all my security people.
Is it not important for the country to see?
Wow. Now, what you heard there at the end was literally the door slamming as Joe Biden is ushered out of the room. You see, when the question was asked, Biden had already concluded his remarks and was walking away from the podium. And they catch him like this quite often. Rather than just continuing to walk out the door as the question was asked, he pauses, he turns, and that's when he says, well, I was commanding it. I was on the phone. And he starts to explain how he can command this this response to this disaster that has affected the Southeast, I can do that from the beach, basically, is what he was saying. No problem. I can handle this from the beach. I don't have to be in the White House. Wow. But yet, again, he's announced that he's coming to North Carolina sometime this week. He mentioned maybe Wednesday or Thursday. What a waste of time. What a waste of resources. And it's going to hurt the relief efforts rather than help.
Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com.
Reverend Franklin Graham, CEO of Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, joined President Donald Trump in Valdosta, Georgia yesterday to support those devastated by Hurricane Helene, of course. The death toll has risen to over 130 in the southeastern region, many still stranded as roads, bridges, homes are in ruin. Samaritan's Purse has been actively responding to the crisis across Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. During the visit, Reverend Graham emphasized the need for a vast number of volunteers to help with the recovery efforts and reassured those affected that God's love is steadfast, stating, God loves us and he will guide us through life's storms. He expressed gratitude to Trump for shedding light on the region's suffering. Samaritan's Purse teams began their assessments on Friday, deploying disaster relief units to aid in the restoration and provide essential supplies. The organization remains committed to helping impacted communities rebuild from the hurricane's devastation. And there are a lot of other great organizations as well. The Red Cross, the Salvation Army, just a long list of organizations who are now in the recovery mode, now in the mode of trying to help people rebuild their homes, rebuild their businesses. Those who still have not been heard from, there's still a lot of people who are unaccounted for. And we are hopeful that they're found eventually. And a lot of it just has to do with communication and the lack thereof. Great story out of western North Carolina after Hurricane Helene just devastated that particular area more so than others. A lot of problems of family members trying to check on loved ones because they don't have a lot of the cell towers are down. So you have dark spots there. They don't have landlines. They don't have cell phones. Sam Perkins has made national headlines as he hiked 11 miles to his parents' home in the mountains over the weekend because he hadn't heard from them in about 48 hours after the storm rolled through, he said. Perkins said, little did I know that up there, Helene had demolished roads, homes, and utility networks. This area is completely cut off from resources in every direction. His parents, he said, are in their 70s, live about an hour from Asheville, which was just totally devastated. And it turns out they were okay. There's a good ending to this story. They were just cut off from communication. And we're hopeful that the hundreds of others who have not been heard from, that it's a similar story. Perkins had to leave his vehicle, he said, at the foot of a closed road to begin his trek. He said, I tried every road route I could, but the roads, no matter where you go, are blocked by landslides, trees, or other failures. He said, I can't tell you how many failing roads and deep mudslides I had to cross, how many fallen trees I had to take off my backpack for and navigate through. As the Asheville Citizens Time reports, first responders have been besieged by calls from loved ones pleading with them to check on relatives, but resources are strained. I mean, that you can only do so much with the resources you have. The Asheville Citizen Times says, even as the rain and winds have subsided, the challenge for people there have increased. Governor Roy Cooper says people are desperate for help, and we're pushing to get it to them. The Washington Post zeroed in on the small community of Swannanoa, whose namesake river, the Swannanoa River, carried away many houses. Mike Holly, 62, said, it's unbelievable. He said all these places are gone. It's been completely and entirely erased, just like as I was talking a minute ago, the little area of Chimney Rock. So although time seems to be pausing here in the Carolinas, the rest of the country continues. And we still have a major election coming up November the 5th. And tonight, we have a debate between the vice presidential candidates. Senator J.D. Vance, Governor Tim Walz. Do you plan to watch tonight's debate? The problem with so many people in the Carolinas, of course, is you have no electricity, so you can't watch it. I wonder if there was ever any thought of potentially delaying the vice presidential debate so that these areas of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Tennessee that were so heavily hit and people just won't be able to watch it. I wonder if there was ever a discussion of maybe delaying it so that these people would have a chance to see it maybe in a few weeks. That's a lot of people that potentially will miss this debate. Politico posted a column last night speculating about how Walz will do against Vance tonight. Their assessment, and this is from Politico, says Tim Walz talks a lot. They write, that's the shared observation from the Minnesota Republicans who challenged the Democrat vice presidential nominee throughout a political career that dates back nearly 2 decades. Walz's tendency to opine at length, often using folksy language, playing up his working-class Midwestern roots, made him a popular figure in Democrat politics and endlessly frustrated the Republicans who faced off against him in debates. They write for J.D. Vance, who will debate him on Tuesday evening, those experiences are a cautionary tale. The Ohio senator is up against a seasoned debater who isn't easily pinned down and who's never lost an election. Vance, on the other hand, has less than 2 years in the Senate and relatively few debates under his belt. I'm still giving the edge to J.D. Vance. I think J.D. Vance is going to be ready tonight, don't you? I think J.D. Vance is going to come across as a well-rounded individual who loves his country, who has served his country in the uniform, and wants to do well. Tim Walz talks about serving his country in a uniform, except when it came time to really serve, what did he do? He bailed out. Politico says it's one reason that Polymarket, one of the largest online prediction markets, gives Walz a 70% chance of winning tonight's debate. 70%. Wow, I'm not buying that. I don't know anything about Polymarket, but I think it's pretty evenly matched. And as goofy acting as Tim Walz is, I think he'll have a couple of goofy moments tonight. And I think J.D. Vance will be ready to seize those. Randy Dimmer, who ran against Tim Walz in 2010 for a congressional race and who lost to him, says he kind of takes the oxygen out of the room. He talks a stream. If you get him going, he keeps talking. He has a tendency to talk around issues, and quite frankly, it's hard to get a good idea of what he said. I've heard that before. He said, I called him Word Salad Walz because he'll talk and talk and talk and talk, and when it gets flustered, he talks really, really fast. Greg Pippen, who also ran former Representative Hagedorn's congressional campaigns against Walz in 2014 and again in 2016. Hagedorn later flipped the district in 2018 when Walz declined to run for re-election and pursued the governorship. Some of Walz's Republican rivals were so confounded that they dispensed with the Minnesota nice approach when describing him. They said, the guy's totally dishonest. You can't trust anything he says, according to Alan Quist, whom Walz beat in 2012 by more than 15 points. That was the main difficulty I had in running against the guy. He would make things up as he went on. He's just going to say whatever is politically expedient, whether it's true or not. That's kind of the Democrat way, isn't it? That's kind of the Kamala Harris way. No wonder they fit together so well. No wonder she chose him for her running mate. Because she does the same thing. She makes it up as she goes. And that's the most frustrating part of all of this is we're sitting there, we hear them, we know it's not true, but the low educated voter, the person who just doesn't care, who just decides to go to the poll in passing, they don't do the research to ever know that what they're saying is not true. According to the Trump-Vance team, Vance, to help him prepare, Republicans brought in a fellow Minnesotan, GOP House Majority Whip, Tom Emmer, to stand in for Walz during debate preparations. Emmer, who served in Congress with Walz, explained on Sunday that his role was getting Vance accustomed to Walz's style. He said, I spent the last month just going back over all of his old stuff to get his phrases down, his mannerisms, that sort of thing. My job was to be able to play Tim Walz so J.D. Vance knows what he's going to see. And what will J.D. Vance see? Politico says expect to see Vance bring up the main attack line against Walz that has existed in the Minnesota GOP circle since the beginning of his political career. That the governor is a political chameleon and it's difficult to discern what he truly stands for. Republicans go after Walz for flip-flopping on gun rights, pointing to the National Rifle Association changing its rating of Walz from an A to an F. For his part, Walz has said that he backs Second Amendment rights but also supports background checks and red flag policies, which he says are necessary to keep kids safe in schools. Pepin says he's a San Francisco liberal. The only difference between him and Gavin Newsom is Gavin Newsom has better hair. The comparison to the California governor, who's a frequent punching bag for Republicans, the Politico right says is a familiar part of GOP messaging against Walz. Emmer has described his home state governor as Gavin Newsom in a flannel shirt. Wow. Well, we'll be watching tonight. I'm sure you will be too, and we'll be able to compare notes tomorrow. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. On the text line, Ken from Spartanburg writes, good morning, Joey. I definitely agree with Clemson having their game Saturday. It gives people a sense of normalcy and just a chance to escape from disaster. That just happened to many, many people. Thanks again. Love the show. Well, you know, Ken, that whole issue of Clemson playing their football game, it's sort of, actually, I was going to say evenly divided, not evenly divided. There's probably been more people responding that, yes, Clemson made the right choice by playing their game. But a lot of people who oppose it have been very loud, been pushing back a lot because they believe that it just wasn't, that it was rude, that it wasn't being conscious of the hurt and the devastation that people in the city of Clemson, what they were going through. Some of the complaints from the mayor, the city administrator, even some from the mayors and officials from the surrounding cities like Central, were very opposed to it, saying that by having 80,000 people come into their area, it took away resources from their citizens that ordinarily it wouldn't matter, but because of the storm, for example, gasoline. You had long lines of people trying to get gasoline. So you had 80,000 people coming to Clemson, and it took away from the locals and food and ice. I mean, one of the things that I read by a number of people, they were complaining that they couldn't even get ice. Of course, they didn't have a refrigerator to keep their food cold, and ice was very, very important to them. But tailgaters came in and bought all the ice. So, still love to get your comments. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. You can text me. The fact is, it happened. They played it. And 80,000 people went to Clemson, spent money. And I guess in the end, that's probably a good thing. Dom from Illinois writes, hello, Joey. I have an announcement. Wow. As of 1:30 today, I will be officially retired for the second and last time. Woohoo! I figured it out that I've been steadily employed with never more than 2 weeks off between jobs for over 59 years. It's time to relax. But Dom, it is past time to relax. Congratulations, my friend, for being able to put yourself first now and do some things that maybe you haven't had the time to do. So I'm so happy for you, Dom. Dom is a longtime listener and really is a friend. I consider him a friend, so I'm so happy for you. He says, oh, P.S., just an FYI, my county in Illinois began early voting this past Thursday. I voted first thing Friday morning, banking my vote. I urge other voters to vote early and bank their vote as well. Thanks, Joey. God bless. That's good information or good advice from Dom for you to, as soon as voting is allowed in your area, start voting. I had a chance last week to spend some time with Curtis Smith, chairman of the Spartanburg County Republican Party. Some of you have emailed and texted and said, hey, I missed part of that. Where can we find that? I'm going to post some of that so that you can easily find it. And maybe, have Curtis back on again because and kind of give us some of those deadlines and dates of when voting will start in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. Texter, let's see, Mr. Thomas says, after 2 days with no power, sadly, this grocery store had to throw away all the food that had been sitting without refrigeration. A lot of things wasted. A lot of people have lost food and refrigerators, freezers. In some cases, people had their gardens from last year and they'd stocked up on things that they would use during the winter, and now it's all gone. Admit it, it's sad. It's something that we'll get through, though. Faye says, Joey, our area of the country is about gone, and Biden is on vacation, and Harris is raising more money. They might be able to get to North Carolina on Wednesday. He never went to Ohio. I hope he keeps his lying bone out of South Carolina. I do too, Faye. Faye says, Joey, do Americans hate Trump more than they love this country? And listen to what John Kerry said about the First Amendment. In his opinion, it needs to go, and in my opinion, John Kerry should have been banned from coming back from Vietnam. I wish his statement could be played every day till November 5th. Joey, please keep up the good work. We must save our country from these idiots. You're so right, Faye. We do. We have. We can't just give in. We got to keep fighting. Fight, 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 as President Donald Trump says. A last-minute deal in Congress has averted a government shutdown. Lawmakers passed a stopgap funding bill. The temporary measure will keep federal agencies open through November, buying time for negotiations on long-term budget plans. The deal, however, leaves unresolved key issues like defense spending and social programs. Also, President Joe Biden said in his news conference that he may ask Congress to return early from its pre-election recess to pass supplemental disaster money to address the broad and devastating impacts of Hurricane Helene. He said that is something I may have to request in his news conference yesterday when asked by media. Despite marathon negotiations, union leaders and company executives have yet to reach an agreement on wage increases and job security. According to the United Auto Workers, they are set to strike against the big three automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, as they enter their third week. The strike has disrupted production across multiple states, impacting the U.S. auto industry. You know, this whole idea of striking, I mentioned to you earlier, of course, today we'll know the final outcome as to whether or not the longshoresmen, the dock workers, will strike. This could really, we think the storms are bad. If these dock workers do in fact go on strike, that was going to be a major event by itself. I talked with some people last week who are in the food business, food brokers, and that type of thing. Our friends at Ingalls, for example, were getting prepared for the longshoresmen's potential strike because it could potentially affect the supply chain of food, of fruit, bananas, and things like that. Ingalls, of course, have a huge warehouse in Swannanoa, North Carolina, which was had a lot of devastation. And so you add that, and I don't know how long it's going to be, how much of what parts of the Ingalls warehouse may have been harmed in some way. But regardless, you know, the fact that they are having trouble getting product to their stores, because particularly in western North Carolina where roads are out, the fact that they're having trouble with that, now you add to that they may not be able to receive shipments because they're on a container ship floating out there somewhere in the Gulf or in the Atlantic because they can't come to the port because there's no one to unload it because of this strike. Wow.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.